let's get into it, shall we? So, what is truth? Well, truth is based upon rational things that can be made to fit into one's reality that become real for them. In other words, 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's hard logic with mathematics. It's the truth. 1 plus 1 equals 2. If I said 1 plus 1 equals 3, you would ask how, or say, no, it doesn't, because your mind is already closed off. So therefore, once I explain, yeah, if you take a male and a female and they have a baby, 1 plus 1 would equal 3. Now your mind would start to open up a little bit and you'll be able to justify the truth in the statement in which that I just stated. Now let's go a little bit further. When you use logic to justify truth, that is when you leave room for creativity, which most do not understand. So going back to our last example, 1 plus 1 equals 2 versus 1 plus 1 equals 3, without certain premises, or without a premise, there won't be a conclusion. So if you don't know what the premise is and you're just jumping the gun to say, no, it's not, because remember, as Stephen Covey once said, most people listen to respond, they don't listen to understand. This is where creativity can take advantage of, well, logical thinkers. So if you're looking at anything from the Luigi Mangiano case all the way to anything else, remember, the law is a very logical thing. So if they can remove certain things and put logic in its place, it would make logical sense that certain things can occur without creativity being present, because most of the people, well, let's face it, are black and white, right? I mean, what are the color of the suits that they wear in there? They're normally formal suits, black suit, white t-shirt with a tie, so on and so forth. The judge who presides over the whole jury is wearing a black gown with a white collar, so on and so forth, etc. And then, of course, they listen to the stories from the plaintiff and the defendant. And without certain pieces being involved or introduced, well, you can beat the law with logic, because that's exactly how the law is intended and designed and structured. It doesn't have or leave room for creativity. So when you introduce it, this is where you get high level criminal minds, so on and so forth, because the creativity leaves in logic, just like when a liar leaves in a part of the truth to make you believe it even more, because when you go check it out, well, the truth is still there, but there's certain things that might have changed. Being that creativity is something that is not very logical, you can see why being creative is such a skill. Think of a magician, or think of an entertainer, so on and so forth. It's on the art side, right? Or not on the scientific side for the very logical people who study things like doctors, psychologists, and things like that. And in marketing, we combine both creativity and logic, because remember, people buy with emotion first and justify with logic later. Honey, why did you spend so much when you went to Target? So on and so forth. Oh, it was just because this was speaking to me. Yeah, but oh, I was able to save more if I bought more, so on and so forth. And that logic is broken. It's a false fallacy, but you justify the emotional purchase with logic later, so that you don't feel bad about the decision that was made, i.e., the purchase, etc. And marketers understand this, and well, attorneys understand this as well, right? If you tell the right story to the jury, or you tell the right story in the media, this is why they have media training, so on and so forth, you're able to see and give little clues and indications to people, especially if you're a master of human behavior, how someone is supposed to be presented, how someone should speak, how they should walk, how they should talk, how their haircut should be, so on and so forth. And all these little small intricacies, these little millimeter shifts, as they say, speak non-verbally to the human behavior that is observing them. So you have to remember that if you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what you're saying and you're attempting, at least rehearse it first, which I'm sure they do, because that's what's the purpose of a mock trial within law. Now, remember, I'm only using law because it's a logical thing. However, within other things, you have a rough draft in, when you're studying literature and you have to write a paper, and then you have the final copy. So everything has to be rehearsed before the final case or the final product is delivered. And the same thing happens in marketing. So If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it must be one, right? Wrong. See, the world I come from, remember, I have 20 years in magic, chess, and martial arts. Now, what this taught me was that not only did I have to think multiple moves ahead, but I also had to reverse engineer how those tactics were going to play out, but then add creativity. And that's where the magic comes involved and into place, right? Because, well, let's face it, chess, you think a lot of moves ahead, but it's all black and white. The pieces are right there. In magic, you do the same thing, but now you're doing it on a different scale. If I were to wipe the board of all the pieces and then ask you to keep track of the game, it would be a lot more difficult because in magic, you do things with things that are unseen and you practice the unseen for hours so that it could go unseen and things could look amazing and believable as it goes on. This is the same thing that applies to chess. And then, of course, with any adjustments or adaptations, this is where martial arts has to come into place. You have to look at it as a play, so on and so forth. Or if you're play fighting, so on and so forth, you can check your emotions at the door, and now you're more calm in the situation. So, therefore, you don't do things emotionally. You do things based on logic and the situation at hand. So, it makes you very agile.